Right, hello back. Welcome to us playing the OTTD Hot Country. As you can see, I've kind of exited the game for a bit, so I have to reload back and then we can get on to where I was before. So just a progress overview, basically. We're playing a 4 megatile map and 700 towns, 1500 industries, and we're still kind of early phase of getting the passenger service up and running. So I said in the previous episode, I think this is going to take the better part of 20-30 episodes. So just a recap on the UGRFs. Squid fish, which we're not really using. FIRS, obviously, some visual stuff. Maglev said 2cc trains and aviators, which is complaining about the plane speed. I think that's complaining about the plane speed because my economy is on 1/3 plane speed, 1-to-1. I don't even have any planes. So basically what we're doing is that like all these dots are trams, and that one big line is a train line, and we're trying to connect all the towns to each other, basically. So just a reminder, if you want, you can always get cargo flow using that one. Helps life a lot. So I want trams. Yeah, we don't yet have maglev. I mean, there's slight. Well, I'll start playing and then I'll explain what's going on. So, from your perspective, only a day has passed since the previous episode, but actually, in real time, probably the better part of a week has passed. And if you watched the previous episode, you may recall that I was complaining thoroughly about the lack of post Generation 5 wagons, carriages, and basically a few other things in 2cc NML trains. And then I was further bitching about the fact that some of it requires Linux to do the makefile and everything else. And well, I got annoyed enough with the whole situation where I actually just got the Linux subsystem going on Windows, and I managed to get the build back up, I say make file and build and that sort of stuff. And I have, as you may have possibly seen in my UGF settings, I now have a homebrew version, which I'm not using in this game. And that actually has generation 6 carriages, wagons per se. I think wagons is American. I'm not sure. And also maglev cargo proper. So not multi-unit, none of that stuff. And then I was kind of probably just say brave enough to announce this on the Discord channel. So now there are people being interested in the whole thing, and yeah, I spent a bit of time trying to figure out how to do development and how to add in stuff like narrow gauge and wide or broad gauge and electric, AC, DC, that sort of stuff. And I'm very much early days because I know nothing about NML, which is the language in which all this is done. So yeah, oddly busy days. which also means that I'll have to balance the YouTube channel and development, which also means that I may or may not have the sort of time to do both. So what I might do is that instead of publishing basically 2 videos a day, I might do 1 per day. Because currently, oops, I keep doing that. Because currently I have both the big map playing and this per day. Well, technically they get published in such a manner. So I might just do like one of them on odd days and the other on even days, and then I'll have more of a opportunity to, yeah, I just need one to spend a bit of time trying to figure out how NML works and how jack types work. And that was mail. I don't think I need 3 of them. And then I still haven't figured out how to delete all. Okay. Yeah, no, obviously. Someone sneezed. Well, I might sneeze soon. Yeah, go. I'll try not to sneeze. Okay. So from here, usual, go there, whatever that is. And this basically gets the same. Just get like 3 of them. And then continue. No loader station. Whoopsie. There you go. Now there is. I still don't think we need 3. And then basically keep moving on. We are here, so go that way. Same. And then they can loop down there. Those mail. And go. Now we curve this way. I mean, I might at some point switch to my version of the new GRF, but not sure. I'll see. I mean, I don't really want to use this as so much of a testing ground per se. I don't think it would crash the game. Subject to time, I might have at some point, not so much a playlist, but just a play of that, just a demo. Once it gets a bit better kicked off, because at the moment, like Gen 6 and 7 use Gen 5 graphics because I couldn't do Stickman, so I can't do much of that. But in terms of functionality, it works. Not too creative. Ah. Clone. Clone. The other thing that would be vaguely interesting, not so much for a long play, but just for the heck of it, is to set the economy to, like at the moment we're running on 1/3, set it to the maximum, 1/125th. And like each month would take an hour and a half or 2, or even more. I have no idea how that works in practice, but sounds to me anyway interesting, because I think time goes too fast in the game. The thing is, why don't I have the bridge here? There's some crappy one. These guys really don't like me. Actually, it could have been just here. Oh well. I don't have that much money. There's a hotel. That's a copper smelter. I said this in the previous one, but it looks more like a sewage treatment plant. Nah. So this doesn't do mail. Also kind of forgot that I should be aiming at 3, not 2. 6, 7. Now that I said I don't have to save money. Which is then pretty stupid because they don't need to come here. I am going to remove this. The other thing I tried in some unrecorded game was the proper unlimited speed fast mode. It works reasonably well when the economy is slow. Within reason. Like when it's not set to full speed. This is mail that doesn't stop here. But when it's on normal speed, you tab and a month literally goes by. So not great. I did not put a station here. I can't have a 3 long here, so it's going to be too long. Passengers, that's mail. Found that. When going back to this whole topic of development, I was actually complaining that a lot of the graphics development was done a long time ago. And that's true, but funnily enough, the actual people are very much actively around. Like, the 2cc stuff was done by partially Emperor Jake, and he's very much alive and kicking. Like, he's on Discord most of the days, and not just him, like, I think I'm trying to copy the one. Some of the other, like, well, I'd say pseudo legends, but more to the point that people that have contributed to a lot of the stuff we're playing with. They just, life has moved on and they stopped doing development, but they're like still around. For God's sake. The slightly interesting part of, say, Jack's development, Jack types is, and then I click on this, is that it's so complex. Like you have to have these sort of things where this is part of the design and the JS tunnels, that sort of stuff. So I think what I'm going to do, once I figured out how to coerce Jack type NML into real type NML, as in, or not real type NML, how to coerce Jack types into vehicle types, which is actually not as stupid as it sounds, because essentially the way they're built now, I have a vague idea, and there's an automation script essentially, and it just follows a long loop of stuff. And I probably could have come through here, but I don't want to spend money on this. There's a depot there. Let's put another one here. Then the next is going to be graphics, and that's way beyond my abilities, and I know that people have offered help on Discord, and that's mighty nice of them. But I think what I'll do is I'll actually get the original game graphics and change those, because there should be all the template stuff, like the grids. I want mail, because all of these are sprites. I'm just going to triple check that I sent everything out, and so they're physically mapped. Like, if you ever look into how sprites are done, it's only people. You usually have one PNG file or whatever format it is, and then you kind of map it. No, I don't want mail. And that's more or less all I know about spread development, which is sweet F all. So it's going to be interesting. It's just going to take a wee bit of time or more. I don't really intend to spend epic amounts of, I hate these, big amounts of time on it. So I want to play this game and, or these games, plural. And also, nice weather is coming to the UK. So, you know, more encouraged to move my backside and get out of the flat. Okay, there's a 3 length spot there or here. I want it here. But that was 2. So yeah, great. I can, there's 3 though. So 6s and 7. The 5. Keyboard shortcuts again. Okay, that's 1. This is pretty bad. 1, 2. I want it here because that's kind of getting out of town. So what we'll do is take one of these and take one of those and have about half an hour. Just come here. And then you, mail. In wholly unrelated news, just to spam people with my life, I finished listening to Heinlein's Puppet Masters. Was good. He's very good. He's definitely one of my favorites. I mean, I've not so far bumped into a Heinlein book that was not good, which is very impressive. And like the other thing about him is that I'm not a huge fan of what I would consider old books. So like anything written, Google again, Muffin Wig, great. Like anything written before 70s usually doesn't resonate with me because you know the style is usually much more verbose. Science was way behind compared to where it is now, and so a lot of the assumptions are, well, I mean, one can smile at them. Like another one I started listening to and I kind of gave up on it very quickly was The Princess of Mars, which is, I don't quite remember at the top of my head when it was written, but the chap died in the 50s, so yeah. And essentially, The Princess of Mars, and I only got as far as the first 1 or 2 chapters, and then I gave up. But the idea is something along the lines of there's this American man who lives like 100+ years ago, more or less. Yeah, there are Indians as in Native American, but they are obviously called Indians because back then they were called Indians. And that the story starts out that the Indians are killing white man because, of course, white men got into their territory and blah 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 blah. They have muffin wig and Google wig. Okay, fine, that's covered. And then the white guy ends up in some form of a cave where he gets kind of instantly paralyzed and like some form of a lucid dream, something situation ensues, and then he kind of sees his own dead body and something, and the next thing he just, without much explanation, the guy teleports to Mars, where in the writer's opinion, small, ant-like, well, not that small actually, some might be big, ant-like creatures live, and it's just a basic assumption that the atmosphere is breathable, because what else could it be? And Mars is covered in the moss and that sort of stuff. And I was like, yeah, I mean, if you look at ancient Greek mythology, quite specifically things like the Icarus myth, where Daedalus and Icarus wanted to escape from the Isle of either Minos or Crete, I don't remember top of my head, and then they basically devised, or they built wings, and Icarus, the young one, essentially died because he flew too close to the sun. Because of course, in ancient Greece, scientists had no concept of the actual distance between Earth and Sun, and that, like, they probably perceive that you can't just casually fly there, but they would have not imagined that it's minus 200 odd degrees Celsius, which I don't even know how much in Fahrenheit, but obviously, like, it takes a little more to be burned to death by going too close to the sun than getting a bunch of wings up there. But they didn't know it. I mean, how would they? Which is fair. And I think one of the beauties of, in my mind, which probably not everyone's going to agree with, but one of the things about the 1970s and newer sci-fi is that the science part, even the hard science, generally lines up with our current knowledge in the big scheme of things, with biology, evolution, space, and such. So it doesn't sound outright stupid, essentially. But you can still disassociate a lot of things. Like, I'm extremely bad at remembering books and titles and writers, because I listen to such an amount of audiobooks that, as my good friends would say, it's in one ear and out the other. But like in some pretty famous book of someone, and this is not going to help, but if you've read or listened to it, then you'll know which one I'm talking about. They're basically octopi kind of inhabiting human spaceships, and they end up in a planet system where regular like creatures live and stuff happens. And then, a long time down the line, after whichever spaceship crashes, then octopi basically take over. Because why wouldn't they? Like evolution. And of course it's an ocean planet, and of course octopi can do quite well there. So how it goes. But that generally lines up with modern day science in so many ways, because we don't know much. Like in the early 1900s, they, especially your more artistically inclined persons, they would have not known that Mars is not covered by moss. Much like if you look at some of the more classics like War of the Worlds, it's pretty laughable by modern standards, and it's not an easy listen, at least not in my mind, because it just rattles on, and on about the nuanced details that actually no one cares about, and it's very verbose. But it's built on ideas that science thought were reality as of the time it was written, and then the enemy just gets killed off by more or less the flu. And one of the actually refreshing counterexamples of I'll do today, of comparatively old sci-fi that's pretty good, at least in my mind, is the Day of the Triffids. So Day of the Triffids is also, I now don't remember, but 30s or 40s. And apart from being a little verbose, it's actually pretty good. I say reading, but in fact I don't read books, I listen to them. Seven, and I want to put the station here. What I'm going to do is that passenger services are going to do both, but mail is only going to do one. For passengers, do this. And then I don't think I can do that. Yeah. Do one more. One of my other slight bugbears with a lot of the American European literature is that they always have a happy end. If you look at, say, Korean works, and I've not admittedly done, like I've not consumed Korean literature at all. Probably the right way of saying it. If you look at Korean films, they don't usually have a happy end. I mean, okay, many of them don't. Like if you look at Old Boy, not the American one, that's a shitty remake anyway. I'm definitely not going to do spoilers in Old Boy, because if you haven't seen it, you should. But let's just say that quite literally 5 minutes before the end, you have no idea what's coming. And I'll just leave it there. But equivalently, if you look at slightly more adult, well, I mean, Old Boy's pretty bloody, but oddly enough, we don't usually consider it adult per se, but I think you know what I mean when I say adult. Is a French-Korean cooperation film quite a few years ago, the Wayward Cloud. Man, that's just a weird amalgamation of stuff. I mean, if you haven't seen it, by all means give it a shot. You can find it online, you know, Pirate Bay, that sort of stuff. Or it may actually be on legit sites as well, the Wayward Cloud. Be warned. I think it's a great movie. It's very much an acquired taste. I saw it with a friend when it came out, and it was in one of the art cinemas. I wasn't big at the cinema. By the time the movie finished, it was just the two of us left. Everyone else decided it wasn't their cup of tea. And again, the end scene in that movie is something. And let's just say that the underlying idea, without being too spoilery, is that instead of water, people drink watermelon juice. And yeah, there's a huge heat wave in Taiwan, I guess. I don't remember. And people drink a lot of watermelon juice. But then if you give watermelon to someone, that's also an expression that you want to kind of be cozy with them. And the whole storyline revolves around two neighbors who get attracted to each other and eventually do stuff, and leave that to your imagination. But slightly to the point that I don't know if I want to bridge through here. Oh, it's cargo dist. I mean, but then again, I could kind of come off here too, and I'm going to put a rail here anyway, so no is the answer. So I'll do these. I do have time for that, and I think I'll kind of backtrack this way. But just imagine that between, so going back to the Wayward Cloud movie stuff, between two otherwise obscure scenes, you then have people doing a musical scene where they like sing and dance in yellow umbrella and rain outfits, and then between some other weird scenes, you have people dressed as crocodiles swimming in the... Why am I bothering with all this shit? 1, 2, 2. Yeah, I can't see anywhere apart from here. Anyway, I can fit it there. Duh. A bit deeper here. It's not too much in the way. Yeah, so you have some other scenes where people dressed as freaking crocodiles or singing and dancing in the air conditioner pool of an office building. And then they go back to doing their watermelon stuff. I was like, oh, why not? Watermelon it is. But again, that's your... Okay, I initially said Korean, I think it's Taiwanese, so apologies. But yeah, that's your non European non-American movie where, you know, they have a very unexpected ending. Let's just put it that way. I think it's, you know, it's the same. Like, now that I've placed Heinlein and I do really like his works, but yeah, look at Puppet Masters. It's obvious from the first moment that there's going to be some form of a happy ending because it's obviously told as a first-person story, i.e., the storyteller being the protagonist lives through essentially an alien invasion. And yeah, logically, the only way he could put that into writing is by surviving. Unless, of course, you take the plot twist of, you know, putting it into a diary and then him dropping dead, blah, blah, blah. But I think there was one and only one book, which I do not remember what it was, where you only figured out towards the end that actually that was precisely what was happening. I.e., the person died, but even then it was some form of a happy ending. Why? Oh, it must have been. Okay, fine. Hello. Just nothing. Okay, I don't think this is going to cause issues. No, I don't want to viewport. That's the thing with graphics, like term 1, wet on send 1, dry send 1. Yeah, sprite, and then yeah, this is this way. This is a 45 degree. That's not a 45 degree. Da da da. I was like, this is a double. It will take interesting amounts of times for me to get the checks, even if I figure out how to do the coding part. Jumping back like 3 topics to the NML stuff. Eventually I will. I mean, I do kind of have a mentality of how effing difficult something could be. And I think for most things, they're not. Yeah, shit timetable. And, you know, tough. And I don't pretend to be a motivational speaker, and if anyone actually knew me, they would know that, if anything, I'm a demotivational speaker. And people call me Marvin as a reference to the Hitchhiker's Guide, because I'm very much like Marvin. Oops. But I find it equivalently shocking that, yeah, a lot of people complain about stuff, but they don't bother to think that actually, like, I've never seen NML, which is the language behind GRPP, which is actually not a standard language as such. But it's not that, yeah, there's a community out there, they'll help. Much like I wrote C# stuff, and that's how I got into it, because I wrote a geotagging app for Windows. So I had used one. I used to use GeoSetter, and then the guy who wrote GeoSetter never updated it, and me, along with thousands of other people, genuinely assumed he'd up dead because there hasn't been an update for seriously 10 years. We thought, nah. And everyone was just complaining that, you know, there's replacements for GeoSetter, and that they have to use something that relies on Internet Explorer in the age of Windows 11, which is a bit of a bummer because there's no Internet Explorer in Windows 11. In terms of like the whole ActiveX browser add-in, which GeoSetter used, and like didn't really work anymore. But no one actually bothered doing anything about it. Like, okay, so I just got into C#, and I've never done coding before. I should probably do one to that town. Lazy Wood and Littleton. About 10 minutes. Actually, I think 7. Okay, so this is vaguely sorted. So I'll try to hook these in these 7 odd minutes, at least to the point of building. No, we're not going to do that. Building out the tracks. Oops. I think especially like in the age of, well, LLMs, a lot of things have become significantly less complicated. I know that people are very much divided on AI and LLM stuff, and you know, there's like in OTTD code base, there's a very strict no AI policy, which, you know, if I do development, I'll keep it in mind, but other than that, I disagree with. Like, why spend epic amounts of time on stuff when it can be done efficiently? Okay, I want to come out like this far, or that far anyway. And I can continue next time. But yeah, I think from from this episode onwards, I'm going to schedule uploads every second day. Probably even days and odd days the other, some such. Okay, I don't like this. And I said come out this far. If I'm not really going to have time to do all this. So building tracks isn't a problem in terms of towns disliking you. There's nothing wrong with building tracks and then not doing anything. They get extremely itchy if you put down stations and didn't do anything. Also, I should probably do it here. Huh? So like what I'm doing now is not an award-winning idea because I'm not actually going to come back here for a few game months or game days anyway, which isn't the end of the world. But if I was to actually forget what to say, that would be a bit more problematic. Also, I need to make sure that they can turn back out. So they can turn there, they will be able to do their thing here. So I might not want to extend it the other way. I think I have about 30 minutes, so this is going to be left halfway hanging. Nice. Right, I have, yeah, sub 2 minutes. So I could obviously cut through here, wherever here is. But I don't want to, not the least because there's no point. Because the other town is here. So instead, let's just put deeper here. Oh, I actually need a station, that would be useful. Duh. Okay, let's try to clone. I still have 1 minute, 6 seconds. No, I'll just do it here. No need to overindulge people. Yeah, so I could kind of bitch here, but I couldn't. I don't really know if I want to pay 100,000 for this one, because I have the money. Now that I said multiple times no. And that's actually going to end my time. Because... yeah, okay. Well, yes, I know it's off. Come on. Stupid thing. So, yeah, as always, thanks for watching. I hope that was enjoyable. Usual, if you feel like, please leave any message after the tone, interactions, likes, whatnot, and I shall see you next time, probably 2 days after this one. Thank you, baby. I'm going to just save and stop recording. Bye.